thanks to Professor Hazara, Head of Department, Peace and Conflict Studies, and Certificates to Mansehra. I want to be there for this program here for our viral. So, inshallah, today, our scholar Adil, who is also a lecturer in Hazara University, he will defend his thesis. He has done his thesis under the supervision of Professor Dr. Islam from Bangladesh. So now we talk with him. So best of luck, Adil, and please start introduce your topic and what have you done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mansehra. A very happy good morning to you all. It is of course one of the most pleasant mornings in my life. I have been waiting for it since last 10 years. So much has changed during this course of time. I entered from my mid-20s to mid-30s, from a bachelor to an individual, and of course further up to 30 decades. But my romance with democracy is even older than that. Although it is a difficult task to objectively analyze a person or an idea with whom one has developed a romantic relationship, a romantic association, yet I have tried my level best to stick to the rules of objectivity. I do confess my human limitation. If you found anywhere in my dissertation, particularly the two experts and internal supervisor Dr. Mansehra, if you find any element of subjectivity, I am a human being and I have my human limitation. Coming to the topic, my title of my thesis was Democratization in Pakistan, 1999-2009, Quiz for a New Paradigm. There's a pleasant coincidence also when I was defending my research proposal, Dr. Server was there, and the subtitle was actually suggested by him. Previously it was Democratization in Pakistan, 1999-2009, a critical analysis. But Dr. Server suggested that it must be Quiz for a New Paradigm. So he has this contribution from the very first day. I completed my work under the supervision of Dr. Islam. Unfortunately, due to his health issues, I couldn't come to Pakistan. When I come to introduce my topic, there are some terminologies which I have used frequently in this dissertation as which focus on democratization in Pakistan. First of all, democracy. As you know, democracy is one of the most talked about concepts in the modern world. There are so many definitions given by scholars and experts of the field, and various criteria, parameters have been developed by different scholars. But I have chosen this the minimalist definition of democracy for my dissertation. Wherever I use this word democracy, it particularly meant a responsible government elected periodically for a fixed term through a competitive electoral process run by the representatives of the people which ensure fundamental human rights and accountability. So this is a minimalist definition of democracy, which I mean wherever I use this term democracy. The second terminology, democratization. Democratization refers to process of becoming a democracy, means process of achieving that goal which is given above. Then when we look at Pakistan history, we'll find that Pakistan is a strange experience of democratization and authoritarian reversal. Its democratic process was reversed for the first time in 1958 when General Ayub Khan, through a coup, captured power. Till 1971, we saw authoritarian regime. Then from 1977 to 1988, the second episode of authoritarianism, and from 1999 authoritarian regime or whenever military comes to power, it captures power, it has so much of resources, power, versus tools. Yet, after a few years, mass mobilization, protest, discontent, all these things compel that military regime to transfer power to civilian government. So how it happened? This remained my interest, and I have tried to identify those factors that what are the factors responsible for democratic transitions during these military regimes. Analysis of all the three military regimes would need a lot of data generation, a lot of resources. So in order to keeping in view my resources and time, I limited my study to the period 1999 to 2009. Although a background chapter is there which discusses the previous two authoritarian regimes and democratization movement during those regimes. The main objective of the study was to highlight the inherent problems of democratization in Pakistan, and more particularly, it tries to add to broader body of knowledge regarding democratization, because most of the studies on democratization are primarily focused on Latin America and Eastern Europe. We do find some studies about Pakistan and other developing nations. This could be an addition in those already existing literature on democratization. To highlight the patterns of transition from dictatorship to democracy in Pakistan, you will see in the subsequent chapters the way the study was organized. It was organized on a particular pattern, and it has been discussed that how from a consolidated authoritarian regime to the transition phase of an authoritarian regime and political forces move. To highlight role of political parties and civil societies during and after the transition phase and its implications for the consolidation of democracy in Pakistan. Research questions. This study mainly revolves around the following four research questions, and these research questions actually determine the boundaries of this study. Firstly, how military dictators try to consolidate their control and power after a successful coup. Secondly, how early cracks appear in the authoritarian regime. Thirdly, why and how a crisis is rooted and matured in a dictatorial regime. And fourthly, how political forces take advantage of these crises and force military to transfer power to civilian forces. As far as the methodology was concerned, it was primarily a qualitative research, and content analysis was used for data gathering. Both the primary and secondary materials were utilized. The autobiographies of Benazir Bhutto, General Musharraf, General Ayub Khan, and some of the other prominent figures. They helped in developing arguments of this study, in enriching the argument. Secondary sources such as articles, books, and materials relevant to the topic, including newspapers, journals, and periodicals, were also utilized to provide background of the study. And finally, insight and understanding obtained through primary sources was juxtaposed with previous academic work, which was helpful in drawing conclusions of the study. Now, organization of the study. Excluding introduction and conclusion, you will find 5 chapters. The second chapter was titled as Theoretical Framework. In this chapter, a review of existing literature on democratization is given, and then the patterns of democratization in Pakistan is discussed. And the framework, theoretical framework that's developed is tested in the subsequent subsequent chapters. Third chapter was democratization in Pakistan, a brief history. In this chapter, democratization movement during General Ayub Khan, Pakistan's first military experience from 1958 to 1971, and the second during Zia regime from 1977 to 88 are discussed, keeping in view the theoretical framework which was developed in the previous chapter. Then, chapter 4 was Pakistan's third military adventure, regime consolidation to selective co-option. In this chapter, Musharraf's early years were the focus of study, how Musharraf consolidated his regime, what were the different tools utilized by him, and then how he selectively co-opted some of the political parties and political elites which helped him in consolidating his regime. Next chapter was rising discontent leading to crisis. This chapter focused on the causes of rising discontent in the society and then the major crisis which actually shook control of General Musharraf on power. Chapter 6 was Pakistan's third transition to democracy, and in this chapter the negotiation between General Musharraf and Benazir Bhutto, NRO, election, and finally transition of power from authoritarian regime to the civilian government is discussed. And at the end, conclusion was drawn on the basis of the debate, arguments in the previous chapter. Now, coming to the theoretical foundation, if we view existing literature on democratization, we will find that there are two kinds of studies, the studies which are existing in the literature. They can be summed up into two categories which primarily answer two types of questions. First is under what conditions democratization occurs, and secondly, what are possible modes of democratization. Again, when we come to the first question, under what conditions democratization occurs, there are two categories of theories. One can be categorized as macro-oriented studies. The macro-oriented studies are developed on modernization theory, which talk about some objective conditions like literacy rate, economic development, growth rate. They are deterministic in their nature, that when these conditions are fulfilled, the political order will automatically become democratic. Then micro-oriented studies, these are sector-specific theories, and these theories focus upon the strategies of different actors, how they played their game in order to democratize a country. Now, these micro-oriented studies identify four factors which are responsible for regime transition in authoritarian regime. Realization within the regime. Now, realization within the regime that it cannot further maintain status quo, and it has to transform, it has to facilitate transition to democracy. Second is loss of legitimacy, when an authoritarian regime due to one reason or other lose legitimacy, as no regime can survive without legitimacy, therefore it has to democratize. Thirdly, emergence of conflict within ruling bloc. If within ruling bloc, due to assassination of the leader of the ruling bloc, or the upcoming contenders of power, there emerge a conflict. So this conflict may lead to democratization or regime transition. Fourthly, international pressures, and particularly in the form of economic sanctions, may compel a regime to democratize. The second set of theories which talk about the possible modes of democratization, they can be categorized into four. Number one, transformation, replacement, translation, and international intervention. And this categorization is actually made by Samuel P. Huntington in his third wave of democratization after reviewing different theories. A brief review of all these modes. Transformation refers to top-down democratization movement. Such democratization in which authoritarian regime itself decides to democratize. And it occurs with the passage of time. One example is that of India, British India, colonial India. The Britishers themselves facilitated emergence of political parties, starting from a little share in power. Finally, they devolved power or democratized India and Pakistan by completely transforming the society. Second is replacement. Replacement is the reverse of transformation. Replacement occurs when there is a mass movement and it's a bottom-up democratization process. So as a result of mass movement, if a system is democratized, we call it a replacement. Third one is translation. This translation is synthesis of transformation and replacement. The two words trans is from transformation and placement from replacement. Translation refers to such transitions in which there is a negotiation between the ruling elite or the military, or if it's a single party dictatorship, there is a deal between the two, the political forces and the ruling elite. And as a result of a deal, democratization occurs. Now, if you look at Pakistan, in almost all the three episodes of democratic transition, we can term these transitions as transitions to translation, because in all cases, a sort of negotiation started between the ruling elite, the military, and the political forces. And the last one, which is the focus of this study, democratization during Musharraf era, it was also outcome of this translation mode of democratization. Fourth one is international intervention. Now, such democratization in which an external power conquers a land, conquers a country, and install democratic institutions over there. We can see the examples of Afghanistan and Iraq, Germany. Now, coming to this study, after going through this literature on democratization, I developed some hypothetical premises, and on the basis of these hypothetical premises, the study was based. A democratic transition, the first hypothetical premise you can see right there, that democratization or democratic transition is only possible under any authoritarian regime if there is a more viable alternative, a preferable alternative. Now, if we look at Pakistan case, we will find that democracy always remains an alternative, a better alternative during authoritarian regime. So, if there is no alternative, there are no possibilities of democratic transition. The second hypothetical premise was that in a developing society, the economic disparity, growing poverty, inflation and price hike, unemployment and poor health and education facilities are the permanent features of Pakistani society. In such a situation, in any change at the regime level generates high hopes for a positive change in the lives of the people. So whenever it occurs that after a military coup, people always have high expectations, and the first features of the three military dictators actually reflected that whatever evils were there in the system, they were due to the corrupt practices of the politicians. And this accountability drive of military generals it will make Pakistan more prosperous and a better place to live. But after a few years, these expectations die with the passage of time when no real change actually occurred in the lives of the people. So it breeds discontent in the society. Fourthly, military regimes, in order to consolidate their position at domestic level, have always tried to build alliances with elite classes. For this purpose, they have co-opted pro-regime political elites, the Convention Muslim League during General Ayub's era, Jamaat Islami and Jamiat Ulama Islam during Zia, and Muslim League, Qaid-e-Azam, PCI, PAT, Millat Party. These are the examples of these co-opted elites. Now, when this co-option ultimately helps in broadening participation base and opening the room for political activity. So, this is the first crack through tiny, but it actually, this crack is responsible. It widened with the passage of time and finally democratization occurred. Opposition political parties also took advantage of the situation and started anti-regime campaigns. Reorganization of political parties and political workers helped to mobilize different pockets of mass population to demand liberty and democratization. Next one is democratization. In all the experiences of military dictatorship started from the early to tiny cracks emerging after selective co-option in the regime, as it is discussed previously. Widened with the passage of time, as the regime failed to bring real change in the realities of socio-economic sphere of common masses life. This content ultimately compels international actors to think of the alternative options for extending their support. Once international actors are convinced that their further support to the military dictatorship must threaten their long-term interests with the state, they reduced flow of foreign aid to the regime, which ultimately created economic problems for the latter. This content at home, coupled with a reduction in foreign aid and international pressures to democratize, had always created a crisis situation where military regime was left with no option than to transfer power to the civilian leadership. And finally, for transfer of power in all three experiences of democratic transition, replacement remained the mode of transition. Transplacement remained the mode of transition. Transplacement refers to negotiated transition which occurs when neither political actors are so strong to replace the regime with mass force, nor the latter is sure of its ability to suppress the former, if it intends to start an anti-regime movement in the course of time. Now, keeping in view these hypothetical premises, the pattern of democratization in Pakistan was developed, and it was divided into 5 stages. First stage is always the stage of regime consolidation, in which political actors are mostly marginalized through NAID or using any other tool. They are imprisoned or political activities are disbanded. But after a few years, some of the political elites are co-opted in the regime, which is termed as selective co-option. Now, this selective co-option increases the participation base, and it allows for some sort of political activities. Then, when system is a little bit open and there is environment of a better, open and free debating environment, rising discontent and which lead ultimately to the crisis, and this crisis leads to the transition to democracy. So these are the 5 stages through which every military regime has passed through. Finally, the conclusion. On the basis of this discussion, I have developed, I want to give some recommend nations. They are the part of this conclusion. First, Pakistan has to review its foreign policy. Up till now, its foreign policy is based on anti-India emotion. It asserts on Mansehra, democracy, a fate of democracy in Pakistan rests in India. The key to democracy in Pakistan rests in India. So, this anti-India emotion has actually strengthened Pakistan military, and budgetary allocation for the military has always been more for defense purpose than for socio-economic uplift of the society. Secondly, we have to review our education policy. Also, chapters on democratic struggle of the people or democratization process, they must be included. In universities, Institute of Democracy must be established. Then, devolution of power and strengthening of local bodies. Now, this is dilemma of Pakistani politics that whenever an authoritarian regime was there, it has introduced local bodies election, which is the spirit of democracy. But whenever democratic government, power was transferred to the democratic government, they disbanded this institution, which is the nursery for political leadership. So, democratic government must strengthen this local body institution. Next, democratic government must ensure freedom of media, freedom of speech, and liberty of thought. Then provincial autonomy is another very important factor which must be ensured by the democratic government. It would ultimately give space to the marginalized classes of the society, like the struggle in Balochistan. The leadership of Pakistan can be streamlined by providing this provincial autonomy. And then increase in signatories of COD, Charter of Democracy, was an historic document. Its signatories must be increased and it must be incorporated in the Constitution. So these are some of the suggestions for consolidation of democracy in Pakistan. Finally, before closing my formal presentation, I am really grateful to Dr. Chaudhary and Dr. Adnan for coming to International Islamic University and being evaluators of my dissertation. I am really thankful to Dr. Mansehra for his unconditional support, his affection, his love. I am thankful to all other participants, Professor Adil, who was my teacher while I was in Masters. He is here today again, and the rest of my friends, thank you very much.